Good evening, you are listening to a MesmePolitics special for President Joe Biden's inauguration. That's right, a new president, a new 4 years. The Biden era begins, the Trump era ends. This is MesmePolitics as per usual, but all about Joe Biden tonight. We're doing an inauguration special. So, it's the usual MesmePolitics, just a whole lot more Joe Biden than we'd usually enjoy. So, hours before President Joe Biden took the presidential oath of office, President Trump offered one more made-for-TV moment. A little past 8 a.m. on Wednesday today, the cable news networks and major broadcast networks were trained on images of Marine One, the presidential helicopter, as it swooped past the Washington Monument and settled onto the south lawn of the White House, preparing to spirit the image-conscious Mr. Trump away on one last ride. The aerial view seen on every major network originated from a camera perched at the top of the Washington Monument. It provided a rare and dramatic tableau that would not have been out of place in the opening credits of The Apprentice, complete with sunshine reflecting off the surface of Marine One as it lifted into the sky, the soon-to-be ex-president in tow. That very eloquent description is from the New York Times. Have a listen to his farewell address from the other night.
To serve as your president has been an honor beyond description. Thank you for this extraordinary privilege, and that's what it is, a great privilege and a great honor. As I conclude my term as the 45th President of the United States, I stand before you truly proud of what we have achieved together. I did not seek the easiest course. By far, it was actually the most difficult. I did not seek the path that would get the least criticism. I took on the tough battles, the hardest fights, the most difficult choices, because that's what you elected me to do. Now, as I prepare to hand power over to a new administration at noon on Wednesday, I want you to know that the movement we started is only just beginning. There's never been anything like it. I go from this majestic place with a loyal and joyful heart, an optimistic spirit, and a supreme confidence that for our country and for our children, the best is yet to come.
So, still not said Joe Biden's name, by the way. I haven't heard him say the name Biden at all, right? Complete silence on that. Pence did attend the inauguration. Trump didn't, like the child that he very much is. But Joe Biden has been inaugurated. Let's have a listen to his inaugural address.
This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service.
That's Joe Biden there. At his inauguration, now the oldest president of all time and the 46th president of the United States. It's official. The Donald Trump years are over. Talking about the day itself, the performances were surprisingly good. I enjoyed Lady Gaga. I enjoyed Jennifer Lopez. I wasn't really... Obviously, I didn't follow who was going to be performing at the inauguration. Sorry. I know, bad journalism. I should have known. But I was pretty... That was pretty good. Lady Gaga looked fabulous. I didn't expect to be talking about how fabulous Lady Gaga looked like on MesmePolitics, but she did. Jennifer Lopez, fabulous. Great. Both good. Both sounded great, more importantly, than how they looked. Lady Gaga especially, on the vocals, on point, right? That's good, we like that. Another observation, just as a Brit, right? As someone from Britain, America is so nationalistic, right? In just the way they do all this, the way they talk about America, the way they sing like 5 different songs, it's all very much more traditionalist and nationalistic than we are in Britain or in Europe, most European countries. You don't see stuff like that here. It is much more nationalistic. And draw the conclusions you like. I'm obviously not a fan of nationalism, but it just is. It's just a fact. I'm not making some sort of covert attack. Just the observation from me is America is so nationalistic, just in their everyday view of the world. And it's not, one set of politicians are. No, left, right, centre. They are all, they all pay lip service to sort of the nationalistic rhetoric of the greatest country in the world, in a way that, of course, there's a bit of that, but we don't have it on the same scale, save from a few of the most sort of doodle-eyed British politicians. Biden's speech, the whole thing was just, and it's not a bad thing, it was dull, right? It was calm. It was serene. No one took a shot at the new president. There were no neo-Nazi, no neo-Nazis turned up. Everything went off basically without a hitch. Incredible. Underwhelming, but incredible. Joe Biden's address was really underwhelming. We knew he'd talk about unity. We knew he'd get all those platitudes. But basically, I watched the whole thing. It was fine. It was delivered well. There were barely any stumbles. If anything, he is a good sort of communicator in that raw emotional sense. Something he's perfected over, 47 years in frontline politics. But he didn't say anything noteworthy. Nothing big, nothing presidential. It was basically all the platitudes and talking points he used throughout the campaign regurgitated in a severely underwhelming, forgettable inaugural address. That's how it was. There were there were a couple of good lines on racial justice. There were a couple of good lines on climate change. Didn't get mentioned enough, but that was good. But other than that, it was a pretty underwhelming sort of string of platitudes, all one after the other. Thus begins a transitional administration. These 4 years are the 4 years of a transitional administration. What are we transitioning to? Well, we might be transitioning to a new era of continual democratic presidents, or we may be transitioning into an era where whatever follows Biden is far worse than what preceded him. We don't know what we're transitioning to, but we are now enjoying a 4-year transitional administration with a chock-full agenda of crises to face. We'll be talking about it in a bit. The environmental agenda, COVID, economic agenda, racial justice, which will all be make or break before the elections in 2022 and the presidential election in 2024. This is from the New York Times. As a child, Joseph Biden wrestled with words, grappling with a boyhood stutter. Years later, as a young politician, he couldn't stop saying them, quickly developing a reputation for long-winded remarks. It was words that undercut his first 2 campaigns for the White House, with charges of plagiarism ending his 1988 bid and the verbal missteps that hampered his 2008 outing from nearly the first moments. It was his self-described penchant for being a gaffe machine, as he once put it, that would cement his vice presidential nickname of Uncle Joe, the endearing relative who prompts the occasional wince. Through a nearly half-century-long political career marked by personal tragedy and forged in national upheaval, Mr. Biden's struggle with his own words has remained a central fact of his professional life and of the ambition he harboured for nearly as long, the White House. Yet, over the course of the 2020 campaign, and especially in the 2 months since his victory, Mr. Biden, the nation's 46th president, has transformed himself into a steady hand whose words are spoken with extraordinary restraint. I think that's broadly correct. It is a little bit sort of fawning over him, isn't it? But what do you expect? It's the New York Times. They're loving this. They're sort of salivating. But yeah, he has not said much. He has got a lot more disciplined. I still don't think he's quite all there. But the benefit of that is this administration is not going to be really centralised, right? He will delegate things in a way that Donald Trump certainly wouldn't. The whole show was run by Donald Trump. What a disaster waiting to happen that is. So what have the Democrats and what has the Biden administration, what has President Joe Biden got to do over the next 2 years? Well, first thing, the climate crisis. We have had an administration for 4 years that completely denies the science. Behind the climate crisis, it's the inevitable conclusion of a conservative politics in the States that is hostile to science, hostile to fact. But of course, complacency was imminent, was sort of rampant through the Obama administration and the Clinton administration. So no administration has addressed this. This administration will definitely get some things done on it. Not got nearly enough ambition, but we need to push, we need to see them embrace big, broad, trillion-dollar green investments in the economy to revitalise infrastructure, to rebuild the country up, to create millions of good-paying, unionised jobs, and to tackle around the world through diplomacy, through agreements, the climate crisis. Setting targets for net zero, getting that train on the road. And in a cooperative way, contributing to the global effort to slash emissions, not as some sort of imperialistic leader, but as one nation in a broad coalition of internationalist cooperation, making sure that those worst off are not left behind, they're brought up by the economic changes that tackling the climate crisis will require. We need to fight for the full Green New Deal. That will not occur during this administration, but we have to get as close as we possibly can, and that has to be what we are pushing for. On COVID-19, Biden will lead the nation out of the corona crisis, and that will reap political dividends for him, whether he deserves it or not. He is in a good position to reopen America within the next 2 years, to get things under control, to get the virus suppressed, and indeed to vaccinate the population. It's going to be a massive logistical challenge. It's going to need a steady hand leading from the federal government, but it's also going to need a guarantee of resources and finances and support being delegated down rather than just asking the state and local governments to do it, but not offering them any help, which seems to have been the approach of the Trump administration. On economics, the economic agenda, along with the economic agenda intersects with the climate crisis, but on top of that, we need to see a focus on helping revitalise deindustrialised areas. We need to see a focus on using trade agreements to benefit workers rather than companies. We need to see a break. We're not going to see it, but we need to see a break with the neoliberal consensus on so many areas. We need to see all the regulatory cuts under the Trump administration repealed. We need to see tax cuts for the wealthy repealed. We need to see taxes raised on the wealthy that have enjoyed a bonanza during this crisis. We need to see an administration willing to take on Wall Street, willing to take on corporate interests, and willing to stop accepting their money. This is not what's going to happen, but this is what we need to see. This is what needs to be done. There are huge challenges. It's going to require huge investment to grow, and putting deficit hawkery to the side. It's going to require innovation in getting these things passed, including budget reconciliation and things like that, it is going to be crucial. It is going to be big. The economic agenda, how people are feeling in 2 years' time, will determine what happens in the 2022 elections. Before we get on to racial justice, let's have a listen to Bernie Sanders on becoming the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee.
If we lose Georgia, Bernie Sanders is the budget chairman.
If we lose the Senate, do you know who becomes the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee?
In 2016, Paul Ryan said Republicans should be scared of Democrats controlling the Senate because Bernie Sanders would be the budget chair.
A guy named Bernie Sanders. You ever heard of him?
Bernie's budget, Bernie Sanders speaking out on spending priorities.
The Senate Budget Committee is really one of the most powerful in Congress because it controls the money.
Sanders has been creating a new stimulus package that could include an emergency universal health care program so that anyone can get medical treatment during the pandemic, whether they currently have insurance or not.
We are proposing to raise the minimum wage so that people can earn a living wage. The American people are hurting very badly. What do the American people want, Lindsay? They want us to create jobs. They want us to rebuild a crumbling infrastructure and create millions of jobs. We now have the opportunity to move this country forward with a very different set of priorities.
Sanders has no problems being loud and bold.
Bernie is a man of his convictions.
I think the job of many of us is to keep banging away over and over again and ask why it is that we end up having millions of people sleeping out on the street.
My friend Bernie Sanders, I can think of no more passionate, devoted ally to working people in this country.
Senator Sanders says that he will use budget reconciliation process to boldly address the needs of working families.
We're talking about moms trying to feed their kids, people worried about being thrown out on the street.
The landlord here has started an eviction process against us.
Never thought I'd be in this situation ever.
I have no money for rent.
If we get kicked out of our house, where are we going to go?
1 out of 4 corporations doesn't pay a nickel in taxes. We are going to start to tax the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations. We just voted the largest military budget in the history of this country, $740 billion. The Pentagon can't even do an independent audit. There's an enormous amount of waste in that budget, but no one worries about that. But when it comes to the mom and dad who are struggling to put food on the table for their kids, oh my God, we're worried about the deficit.
I need help because I'm about to be homeless.
What our job has got to be is to bring people together around an agenda that is in fact supported by the vast majority of the American people.
Bernie Sanders, everyone, new chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, a man of his convictions and a man with more influence in the Senate, in Washington, holding the Biden administration to account and pushing for progressive priorities. We need hundreds of Bernie Sanders on the ground, and that is why the work of organisations like the Justice Democrats is so helpful in bringing in genuine progressive voices willing to take on the corporate establishment, willing to tackle and transform the Democratic Party from the grassroots up, because that is what we need to see. On to racial justice. There is a massive racial justice crisis in America. It's never gone away, but let's use the light that's been shone on it now. The mass mobilisation, the mobilisation of a generation behind the Black Lives Matter movement to drastically reform, cut powers granted to the police, and yes, tackle the militarisation of the police force, the bloated budgets, the blatant corruption, the alliances with the far right, and yes, let's look at defunding police budgets in favour of a rehabilitative approach to policing in America, centred on early intervention, centred on less punitive, more cooperative. Let's invest in mental health services, community support, and let's drastically cut the level of aggressive militant policing in the United States. It's not that scary. It's not that deep. This is what we're talking about. These are the things we need to push for. And we need to see, all the rosy words from Joe Biden. Let's see and hear Joe Biden actually make the commitment, actually push for genuine change. That's what we need to see. The Democratic Party has broken its promises to the African American community far too many times. They've been given another chance because the other option on the table was basically a white supremacist party. Let's see them deliver. Let's see them deliver. What happens between now and 2022? What happens over the next 24 months will make or break the Democratic Party in 2022. Will it be a wipeout? Will the Republicans seize back control of the agenda in Congress, turning the Biden administration into a lame duck presidency for the second half of it? Quite possibly. The only hope is to deliver and, use these next 24 months, use every trick in the book, every antiquated process to get past the opposition, to bypass the Republicans, get progressive priorities passed. Learn from the mistakes of the Obama administration, get them passed. Deliver for your constituents. It really is that simple. Before we talk about the historical significance of everything that's gone on, let's hear Kamala Harris.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Kamala Harris there, the first female vice president in history. She is crucial to the whole operation for several reasons. First of all, she is the de facto 2024 nominee of the Democratic Party, save a groundswell of grassroots support, against her. She is the insurance policy of the Democratic establishment. Let's not put anyone to the left in the vice presidential spot in case they get power. They put her in. It means we have basically 3 consecutive terms of corporate Democratic hegemony if Democrats keep winning elections after Joe Biden's presumably one-term presidency. She is a ceiling breaker. She has shattered the glass ceiling in being the first woman vice president, the first black vice president, the first black woman vice president. Amazing. But we've got to remember, this is genuine diversity, is about diversity of perspective. It's about actually implementing policies that help people of colour. Barack Obama was the first black president. That is vital and important in a multicultural society. But he bombed the Middle East. He killed hundreds of thousands of people as a direct result of his policy. Mass murder from the state. I don't care what colour your skin is, that's evil. Same thing here. If Kamala Harris, and by all accounts she will be, is just a standard bearer for the corporate establishment, it's the old thing of, it's more women in the boardroom, but they're all serving Wall Street still. We're talking about we need a system change along with the diversity, not just we keep the corporate show going, but a little bit more diverse, a little bit more liberal. Joe Biden being sworn in now.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
There you go. The new president right there being sworn in. President Biden. He is the oldest president of the United States there's ever been. He's in a unique circumstance of being a transitional president, being of the age he is, being in conflict with much of the perspective of the grassroots of his party, but having to step way out of his comfort zone in terms of the ambition of his proposals, purely because the crisis he's facing up to merits it. Joe Biden is no FDR. But over the next 4 years, we must push to see him deliver FDR-scale policy transformation. Will he do it? It all depends on what happens next. This is a corporate establishment administration. We know this. These people take money from all the big corporate donors, all the most depraved corners of the corporate establishment that has made a killing off the back of the labour and the exploitation of working people in America for decades, leading to the rise of Trumpism. That's why a Biden administration, whether or not it beat Trump, was ever going to be a great thing to replace Trump with, or a great bulwark against the rise of the far right or the rise of further Trumpism in American politics. That is a fact. We have to work with that. The work of organising begins now. We don't soften our approach. We push further. We're even more aggressive than we were under the Trump administration. We don't treat Biden with kid gloves or give him a honeymoon. We from day one are demanding the priorities we demand, the priorities Biden pledged to, and we push and we push and we demand and we protest. That is what has to be done. Trump basically slumped off, didn't he, in the end? It sort of went out with more of a slight phew, rather than a bang, sort of a slow simmering out. He said, "Have a nice life," and thus played the YMCA. No, really, check out the footage. That was a weird 4 years. A cruel 4 years, a vindictive 4 years, a weird 4 years, a 4 years that peeled off the mask, exposing the true horrific nature of American imperialism in a way that other more civil presidents didn't, even though they were doing the same things. The worry now is that Joe Biden basically does all the same stuff, just looks more approachable. That's what has to be pushed back upon. Normal scheduling resumes tomorrow, so subscribe to this YouTube channel with notifications on. I'm Toby Mesme. I will be back for Thursday's show tomorrow from 7 PM, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective. A new administration? Stick with us. We will be giving you all the coverage every day of what's going on in the States. And let's all just, for a minute, appreciate